Hi, this is Metaphysically Speaking with Mystic Madison, and I'm here again with a special guest, Nikki Keegan. Hi. And today we are doing our Halloween special. This is a special programming that is off from our normal day, which is Saturday at 2. We're doing this because Nikki was able to join us today. Thank you very much. This is the second time Nikki Keegan has been with us. The first time she was with us, we did our very first show, which was about what it means to be psychic and how to clear your field psychically, how to clear your aura, and she taught everybody how to make the salt scrub, which I've actually used and I love. So anyway, we are here today to talk about Halloween. We're here to talk about what Halloween means, and we're here to talk about the Day of the Dead. So we have someone who knows a lot about that, and maybe you can talk about our altar too. So,
Hi, everybody. So, right here we have basically this is a basic altar setup. It's not traditional like what would normally be seen on, Day of the Dead, also known as Dia de los Muertos in the Mexican culture, Catholic tradition. But we have a candle here that's lit for our ancestors just to honor them for this month and this time as we're approaching Halloween Day. And we have little pumpkins, some little festive flowers. Marigolds are a big theme around Halloween. They're known as flower of the dead, so that's why we tend to use a lot of orange and those kind of colors. We have our October 31st and our little skull here to represent our ancestors as we continue forward with the show tonight.
yes, and I'd like to point out that I can use these again next year because my marigolds are not real flowers, but they're representative of real flowers. So, and do you have any idea? I mean, can you tell our viewers why they use marigolds? Is there a because I think they use a lot of. You had mentioned they use different flowers.
They use different flowers. Marigolds are traditionally known as the flower of the dead in that culture. They're known to ward off evil spirits, but it also tends to attract spirits, so that's why those are traditionally used. Also, another type of flower that's used are carnations. You can use any color that resembles the favorite colors of the person who was alive at that time. I think a lot of the time, yeah, we have this illusion that Halloween is about celebrating, trick or treating and
like
getting candy,
kids in costumes.
but really, what it's been built up to, and is now practiced widely all over the world, is that it's a day to honor our ancestors and our deceased loved ones who aren't here with us anymore. So for me, and I'm sure many of you would agree, you know, we've all lost somebody and we miss them dearly, and this is our one night once a year where we get to be visited and celebrate, and we just get to have fun and celebrate with them as the veil thins on All Hallows Eve, which is October 30th, so that they can come through and just hang out with us for a couple days.
It's interesting that the veil thins on October 30th, but the actual day of Halloween and the day that all the kids dress up and the day that we've come to know and love is really the 31st.
Yes.
Why don't we just celebrate Halloween on the 30th?
Well, it's kind of hard to answer that question because every culture is different and has different views and beliefs.
Okay.
I mean, in some places around the world, they celebrate Halloween as early as November 28th, and then it goes on into,
You mean as
second,
late as November 28th?
as early, because November 28th leads into the 29th, and then we go into. So for some people, around the world, it's definitely a build-up, but traditionally it's known that on the 30th it's All Hallows Eve, and that's the day that's closest to the veil where it starts thinning. It's just been known all over the world that the veil thins on midnight of October 30th. So that is when the veil is the thinnest, and the souls of the dead, of our recent lost loved ones who died within the past year, they get to come through first. And then as we go into November 1st and November 2nd, then there's like a different wave of souls that comes through.
Wow.
If that makes any sense.
It's interesting because growing up where I grew up on the East Coast, I knew nothing about that. So I'm so grateful really to have you on the show because it's kind of a different perspective. I think it may be somewhat different of a perspective for
Mm-hmm.
some of the viewers, not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of education, there's a lot of background, there's a lot of richness,
Yeah.
other than just going to your local store and buying candy, which we all love to.
Yeah.
So I want to take a minute just to tell everybody, just to kind of give everybody the thumbs up that you should make a heart. You should heart us if you're interested in this program. Look at us, guys. Look at us. We've dressed up for you. Nikki has her trademark witch look, and I have my gypsy fortune telling look. And we really want you guys to love us. We want you guys to give us a thumbs up, and you do that by giving us a heart. We hope that you like the program. We're also going to be taking callers. This is the first program. I think we're trying to figure it out. We're still new to this, but we would love to take callers, because not only are we talking about Halloween, and we're going to also, because Nikki knows a lot more than I do about paganism, we're going to throw in a little bit about that, because that's very rich in the culture. And we're also going to throw in some ghost stories. That's our special surprise. Nikki has one that's very poignant, very interesting, very close to her heart. I have one that is not necessarily close to my heart because it's not someone I knew, but I experienced it nonetheless. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear any ghost stories that you have, or anything that you want to share about your own Halloween experiences or Day of the Dead experiences. So you can add to that, or I can start with my questions.
Well, I just want to add that although Halloween has been adopted widely all over the world through the Christian and Catholic churches, it did start off as a pagan tradition. Day of the Dead traditionally came from Mexico, and Mexico Catholicism is a huge worldwide practice. I mean, it's practiced all over the world. But it was adopted by the Catholic Church to go on and become this national holiday. And, honoring our ancestors, I'm pretty sure in every culture, religion, and tradition, is a very wide, respected thing. It's your people that you love that aren't here anymore. And, we need to honor, I feel like we need to have, they deserve their day to be remembered. And this is definitely one of those days, that we celebrate that. But I also want to add, Halloween, we look at Halloween and we see kids how they dress up, and we go trick-or-treating, and that's, a big theme for the year. And I just want to add that dressing up for Halloween came from a pagan tradition. Halloween is also known as Samhain or Samhain in the pagan tradition, and it's also a day that we recognize as pagan New Year. And so instead of having New Year on the 1st of January, we have New Year on Halloween, because we feel like our ancestors, when they come, it's like they are here to help give us blessings and surprises, and we honor them, and they return, they help guide us, and dressing up for Halloween came from that, like it's New Year, so what are we going to do to represent, where we want to see ourselves and what we want to accomplish, just kind of like how we do the New Year's resolution, but instead of it being a New Year's resolution, you dress up in a costume as what you would like to see yourself as.
So if I want to be more organized, I can dress up as like a chest of drawers, or
yeah, or I mean, for me, I'm dressed up as a witch this year because I want to get more in touch with my witchiness.
Yeah. No, it's interesting what you said though, because I want to talk a little bit about how, first of all, it's almost like you're saying that we're closing a chapter if we've lost somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you had mentioned earlier that those people come through first.
Yes.
So it seems like the cycle, you're kind of doing something to close the cycle. And
yes.
I know in the Jewish religion, you do something like that as well.
Yes.
And I think a lot of beliefs and a lot of different cultures do that, and it's very necessary, because just because somebody's gone, they should still be honored, remembered.
Oh, totally.
And they're probably, depending on what your belief system is, they're connected to us in some way, even if they're not in the body. I wanted to mention to you that I have a friend who lives in the South. He lives in Texas. And I thought this was so fascinating, but he told me that in Texas, and it's not something we do here, I don't know if it's something you've ever done, being pagan, but it's something that they do. on the birthday of the person that's passed away, they actually, all the family and friends get together and they have a picnic at the cemetery. You've heard of that?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
And a similar thing when we usually, I mean, up into the weeks building up to Halloween. I mean, you'll see this, like, if you ever visit Los Angeles or Hollywood, you'll visit the Hollywood Forever Cemetery around this time. You'll drive by, you'll see all the gravestones, every single one has flowers, colorful decorations. So spirit of this to really, honor and remember those that they've lost. And actually, this is a little bit more like the pagan twist on how I celebrate Halloween. But I'll set up you see this basic altar. It has these beautiful things. You can add pictures of your lost loved ones and their favorite items, their favorite flowers, their favorite colors. Another thing that we do is called a dumb supper, and basically what that is consisting of, it's similar like what you were talking about with the picnic, except that this is done on Halloween night as Hallows Eve. Okay, so October 30th, we cook a dinner, and it's the person, whoever we're celebrating, what would have been their favorite food, and we'll set up the dinner table just like for a feast.
As if they're still alive.
As if they're there, and we'll set up their plate and their chair and their drink, and it's all there for them, and we have dinner in silence.
Wow, you didn't tell me that part.
Yeah, and just complete silence, and just in the dark, and as we're sitting there, we're reflecting, and it can be very emotional, to have that experience, but it's also very beautiful. One thing I do when I do that every year, as I'm sitting in silence, once I finish my dinner, I'll have, my candles going in the background, and I'll write a letter. One person I love to connect with is my mother. I look forward to speaking with her every year. I lost her at such a young age, so I feel like
we're gonna get into that.
That's how I work and honor with her, and just writing a simple letter. If there was something you wanted to say before they passed away that you didn't get to, that's your chance to do it.
When you talk about how you have, their favorite dinners or their favorite drinks, I know you mentioned that. I actually had this funny thought that, if there's a lot of people, like as the years go by, like maybe, you start and you do this when you're really young and it's your grandmother. And then when you get older, it becomes like, unfortunately, like your parents, or, after a while, you're going to have a whole table full of people. Right? And you're going to be cooking a lot of meals and pouring a lot of drinks and honoring a lot of people that maybe you knew as a kid.
And you can set your intention to be universal. You don't necessarily have to set up a plate for every single person. As long as there's something on the altar for them to have access to, they will appreciate that.
Do we know where, and I don't know if you touched on this, I apologize if you did, but I'm just wondering where Day of the Dead actually came from. I know you talked about the veil thinning, but growing up on the East Coast, like I was really surprised when I saw that, in my son's preschool, they were drawing pictures of skeletons, and they're cute skeletons, but some of them are like, I think little kids could get scared. I know at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, when they do their day, they do a lot of they do face paintings. But some of it can be, like a skull can be scary to some kids.
The reason why people, first, let me answer your first question.
Okay.
So Halloween originated in Mexico.
Right.
Day of the Dead, the celebration of honoring your dead in this way of dressing in colors and painting your face and decorating the tombstones. It originated in Michoacan, Mexico. And it's,
where is that in Mexico? Is that close to Mexico City, or is that?
That's like very, like, it's pretty deep in Mexico. I'm not sure exactly, like I don't have a map in front of me where I can point it out, but it's a pretty old part of Mexico.
Yeah, more tribal, more traditional maybe, or more indigenous?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And through this culture, through this practice, it got adopted by the Catholic Church, because in a lot of Mexico, Catholicism is very widely practiced, and it's just another way of bringing that beauty into the religion. And so this is also a community thing as well, because as some people began to do this, people caught on, and people appreciate and honor the sacredness of this day. And I just want to add, as you mentioned, the face painting for
kids,
the children.
Yeah.
It's not just for children; it's for the adults. The reason why is because it said that once the veil has thinned and the spirits are coming through, when we paint our faces in the sugar skull, it's like we're blending
is this the sugar skull?
Yes.
Would that be the okay?
Yes. You know, the pretty skulls with the flowers and
I
all
have
the
to
little
show
designs.
everybody. This is our sugar skull. Hi.
People do paint their faces in that way as well, so they can blend in with the dead as they're doing the March of the Dead as the veil thins at midnight, so that their loved ones know where to come and find you, and you know you're not gonna get tricked by the trickster spirits, because it's not just for loved ones and family people. This is, you know, all spirits. Whoever's gone, including your pets, will come through.
And what does that mean? Because you know, I've heard about the veil thinning, but some people may not understand that. What is it? What is the veil? And we can talk
The
just for a
veil
short time
basically represents the gates of heaven.
about it. Okay.
That's the most simplest explanation I can give you. It's just that's known that the gates of heaven open so that the loved ones can come back and reunite themselves with people that they were connected to in life and say their goodbyes or visit and give blessings and guidance. But also remember too that we have trickster spirits out there, and sometimes that's where that term trick or treat comes from, because you know, sometimes, you know, we have mischievous, you know, spirits that come through and like cause mischief and trouble, and you'll see this a lot in teenagers. You know, people don't realize, you know, a lot, but you know, we do become influenced sometimes, you know, from things we can't see. And so, you know, just be aware that, you know, if you want to avoid that, just paint your face as a sugar skull and you're fine.
Everybody, all the kids are going to be going to school with sugar skulls, and I'm going to be walking down the street with my sugar skull to make sure that I blend in.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think that's really educational. I mean, I feel like I know a lot more that I didn't know, and because Halloween, I think, has become such a more commercial holiday, I never really stopped to really find out where, you know, the other side of it came from. So thank you for that. That was pretty thorough, and I know more. So now I think we should maybe talk a little bit about our ghost stories, because I'm hoping if people heart us and they like the show, they'll also come in and they'll call and they'll talk about some of their experiences. That's one thing. Ever since I was a kid, I always loved ghost stories. I'd be scared to death, like for the next week, but I always loved them. I found them fascinating. I found the idea that there's more to life than what we can see, and that we're on one dimension, and our dimension is actually layered with other forms of energy. What's so funny?
Oh, I'm just remembering, because you said, you know, since you were a child, and I just remember being a kid and being so fascinated too. Like, I used to love watching Scooby-Doo. And I would get so scared, like, you know, watching them sneak around, try to find the monsters, and I would still like be peeking out of my blanket.
Oh God. Yeah, it's like, it's kind of funny. There's like this dichotomy between wanting to be scared and wanting to be safe. And even though we're like, oh, I know I shouldn't look, or oh, I know I shouldn't think about it, you still can't help it, because it is, you know, it does kind of pull you, because it's such a mystery also. I think that has a lot to do with it.
The curiosity that killed the cat.
Right. You just like really want to see what's in the bag. So, yeah. But I guess I'll tell my ghost story first. I think your ghost story is, you know, by far, you know, something that maybe other people can connect to if they had been in the same situation. So I think we should tell your story second. But I'm going to just talk about my story really quickly. So when my husband and I had first gotten married, we took a little road trip. We went back east for a wedding, and we wound up in this place called New Hope. And New Hope contains or has the oldest hotel in America. Now, I forget what that hotel was called, and you can Google it, but we decided to stay at this oldest hotel because it was so interesting, and we found out that it was part of the Underground Railroad, and we found out that it was haunted.
Wow.
And there was one room that supposedly on the top floor had the most activity. And at the time, I was pregnant too. That was the other thing. So we decided to stay there. The room was open. We decided to be adventurous. And when I remember walking into the room, and maybe this is something that other people can know, the room felt incredibly stuffy. It felt like there wasn't enough air in that room. So the first thing that I did, and also knowing a little bit about ghosts, I opened all the windows. And, we went downstairs and we went to the restaurant. We had a good dinner. I came back, and we must have came back at like maybe 10:30 at night. My husband told me afterwards that he felt like he had like something hit him. He could not keep his eyes open. There was this heaviness that enveloped him, and he just was like knocked out. It was like somebody gave him sleeping pills. He could not stay awake. So suddenly it's like getting close to midnight, and I'm alone in this room because he wouldn't wake up. I kept trying. So I got out a book, and I really wasn't tired yet. And truthfully, I was like a little scared. So I got out my book, and I thought I would read, and I kept the light on. Eventually it got, as we got closer to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I think it was maybe 2:30, I couldn't stay up anymore. So I turned the light out, the bathroom light was on, and I just kind of dozed off. And I also want to add that isn't it true, just like Halloween when the veil is thinnest, isn't it also true that between 2 and 4 the veil is thinnest?
That's definitely a time where a lot of activity can pick up. They call it the witching hour.
See, you heard it from her, the witch. So the light came out, and I started to fall asleep, and something woke me up. I can't explain how I knew to wake up. I can't explain why I woke up. But all of a sudden, between me and the wall, the edge of the bed and the wall, I saw all these lights. It was like there was a form there, and as I was opening my eyes, it started to fade, and it faded in these like bubbly lights. It looked like it was the size of a person, and then it started to disperse, or kind of not evaporate, but it was, and I got so scared because it was so close. It was really between the arm of this chair and your knee. I mean, it was really close because the bed was close to the wall. And I remember trying to scream, and this is what they mean when you, like, the scream got caught in my throat, and I went to get the light, and I was like, like I couldn't get the scream out because I just was so terrified that I think my throat muscles must have constricted. So anyway, that was the only sleep I got that night. I like to believe now that maybe it was a benevolent ghost. Also, I like to believe that maybe because I was pregnant, maybe there was some sort of energetic pull or curiosity. I also want to say one more thing. I thought there's a moment where you say, was this really my imagination, or did this really happen? And the next morning we were checking out, and I started telling the staff what had happened, and they directed me to this photo album that they had, and the photo album had those same dancing lights, pictures of them, these orbs. We'll call them orbs, but they were situated together in clusters coming down the stairs of this inn, and in different various locations of this inn. So I'm getting chills when I talk about it.
Picking up on a man. Sometimes it was a man who lived there at some point. I get like an overdose or something, or he just died in his sleep.
It's hard to say, but keep in mind that this inn is from, the 1700s and was part of the Underground Railroad. So there was a tremendous amount of activity, I'm sure, that happened in and around it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my ghost story. And afterwards, that was validation for me. I knew I had seen something once I saw those photographs.
By the way, guys, if you never had a ghost experience before, I like to call those holy shit moments.
Because you try to scream and you can't, and it gets
just like
all you can say is
guard,
holy shit, because you can't scream, you can only talk.
Yeah.
So do you want to, maybe it's a good time now to,
sure.
And also you had said that you lived we should also say that Nikki grew up across the street from a cemetery.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned that on the last show too. And so because of me growing up in such an environment like that, I became very sensitive at a young age. And
wait, I have a question. When you opened up your curtains in your bedroom, did you see tombstones? Were they?
No.
Oh,
well,
okay.
I mean, my bedroom wasn't facing the cemetery, so I faced my neighbor's house from my window. But if you were like to go outside of our front door and step outside into the driveway, the tombstones were So my house is on this side of the street. I'm on a hill, and then there's a house across the street of me, and their backyard had the wall to the cemetery that was dividing. You know,
The
so all you
houses
had to,
from the cemetery.
yeah, so all you had to
Right.
do was dig a hole under their wall, and there you were. You know, that's
Right.
how close.
Did you
I was.
play in there when you were little?
No.
No, I don't know. I mean, kids are curious. And
No,
there's
I was
always
terrified of them.
there's always like the dare, the truth or dare, like the kids that are like, I dare you to go running through the cemetery at night without your shoes.
Growing up next to the cemetery was a very creepy but peaceful thing, because if you've ever seen Forest Lawn, which is one of the that's the cemetery I grew up living across from. I mean, it's a beautiful cemetery during the day, but at nighttime, especially when you're living on a hill, you know, it gets foggy, it gets really dark. You know,
You
it's
got the
kinda
full
creepy.
moon, like kind of casting shadows.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy. And then I grew up kind of with those bumps that went in the night and being afraid of the dark. And I always felt like something was there. And I didn't quite really, you know, understand it until later, what exactly it was, you know. So I kind of dismissed a lot of the stuff that was happening to me at a young age until I was like a teenager.
I want to say something about that. I do think that those of you that are more psychic, or people that are more have a higher awareness of energy, would probably feel the same way you feel. I'm not sure everybody's afraid of the dark, but
I feel like spirits, you know, disembodied spirits of the dead, you know, I feel like they're attracted to people who are sensitive to energy, because most of the time, I want to say maybe like 80% of them need help of some kind, whether it's getting a message across to a loved one, or, you know, having unfinished business, or having died a sudden death or something of that sort. I mean, sometimes, you know, they're still not aware that they're dead. So, you know, we're kind of here to as mediums, you know, we're here to help them, you know, and you know, help them find the closure they need so they can move on, you know. So.
It's a little bit like that movie Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of an older movie now, but I think that really brought the point home.
And I believe that every person on this planet has all 6 of those senses, and it's up to you to exercise them and develop them.
Yes, and go refer to our other show about keeping your aura clean, because this really ties into that. You really want to make sure that your energy field is clear, so that you can receive those feelings, those insights, those messages without getting pulled down by them.
So with that being said, let me share with you my ghost story.
Okay, that's a great lead-in.
It didn't happen. It was one of my first experiences, and it didn't happen on Halloween, but boy, did it change my life. I mean, it was a matter of 24 hours, and I was completely unaware of a lot of things, and then there was like, oh shit. You know? So let me tell my story. So it started happening, the situation happened the next morning, but the night before, a lot of weird things were happening to me. I lived with my grandma at the moment, and my great aunt. And my great aunt was kind of a mute. She didn't talk very much. She was very quiet, you know, didn't speak, but she was always whispering and mumbling things under her breath. It was
there a reason she was more nonverbal?
You know, my grandmother had shared with me that she had played with tarot cards when she was younger, and
oh, that's so scary. Because that's not what we want people to think about tarot cards.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was told. I really don't know why. You know, I don't believe half the stuff my family has shared with me about our history.
So what happened with
I had my own room at the time, and my grandmother and dad used to keep their clothes, their dressers in my room. We had kind of a small house, so you know, we had to fit things wherever we could. I was very into sports as a teenager, and I had all of my trophies lined up on my little dresser. That I had all my little teddy bears and, you know, all those things. And I remember I was in the living room with my grandmother. We were watching novelas. You know, I come from a traditional Mexican family, so, you know, novelas are a huge thing. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And so we're sitting in the living room watching novelas, and I decided, hey, I'm going to go to my room really quick. I need to get something. So I go to my room, and my room, I've always been kind of a neat freak with my room, so I have everything a certain way. I go in my room, and I'm seeing, let's just say this was my trophy. My trophy was let's say this was over here. My trophy was over here. And I thought that was strange. I was like, okay, well, who's looking at my stuff? I dismissed it. I thought, well, maybe my great aunt was in here, because she was there at the doorway, you know, when she was there.
So you thought somebody had physically moved your trophy out of place, and you had kept everything very neat. and lined up. Okay.
Yeah, but what struck me off was that my great aunt was standing at the doorway and she was looking at my trophy very like confused and very like questioning but not speaking. Again, she didn't really talk very much, so she kept a lot of things to herself. So I put the trophy back and I told her, oh, hey, that's cool that you want to see my stuff, but please put it back when you're done. So I put it back in front of her so she knew what to do. I walked away again. I came back. I think I came back again a second time. This time nobody was there, in the room. And again, the trophy was all the way over here. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I was getting mad, I was a teenager, so I was getting mad, and I'm like, hey, who's moving my stuff, and stop touching it, and put it back.
Right. How old were you when this happened?
I was 16.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 16.
You would be, any 16-year-old would not want their stuff touched.
Yeah. So I put it back again, and then I went back to the living room with a confused look on my face because I had talked to my great aunt about, I had just talked to her about that, and she told me she didn't touch it. So I went to the living room, and my grandma noticed a change in my face. And she's like, what's wrong? I said, she's like, I really don't know. I told her, I don't know what you're going to think about this, but it's just strange to me that every time I keep going back to my room, one of my trophies is at the edge of my dresser. I don't know why. She's like, well, it was your aunt. I was like, no, I already talked to her. She said she didn't touch it and it keeps moving. She's like, I don't believe you. I was like, okay, well, come here then. So I took her to my room and I showed her, look, this is the trophy that's moving. And I don't know why, but I'm putting it here. Let's close the door to my room. Let's go back to the novella. Let's check back in a couple, 20 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. So we sit in the living room, we're talking, she's trying to make me feel like I have nothing to be afraid of. So we go back, so she tells me, 20 minutes have passed. Why don't you go check on your room?
She said, why didn't she sent you back in there?
Yeah, of course. She wasn't going to go check.
She wasn't going to go check. She's like, I'll just send her.
So she wasn't believing me. She was getting mad because she thought I was playing games.
Oh.
So I go back to my room. I open the door, and that's all I had to do was open the door because as soon as I peeked in, the trophy was back at the edge of the dresser. And I yelled for her. I was like, Grandma, come here, look, it happened again. See, I'm not lying, it happened again. And she's like, no, you're lying, you moved it. And I was like, no, I didn't move it, it's there, She got all angry and dismissed everything I said. I think she was kind of afraid in some sense and just wasn't trying to show it. But
she didn't want to believe it.
Yeah, so she's like, just forget about it, it's nothing, you're just playing games, don't joke around like that. I'm not kidding, So at that point, I felt like, well, I really can't talk about these things, That's when I started feeling very disconnected, at that moment, because I felt like, well, I'm experiencing all these things and I can't talk to anybody about them, And so, okay, I dismissed it, They made me feel, okay, maybe I'm just thinking things, or
Or maybe they were playing the trick on you, maybe your aunt was like, oh, I'll just move it, and, she's not very verbal, so she can't tell you it's a joke.
So I dismissed it. I completely dismissed it. I went back to the living room, we finished watching that, I stayed up maybe till midnight, I went to bed, I woke up, the next morning to a loud sound in my room, and it was like the sound of drawers opening and closing and someone searching for something in there. If you've ever had a heavy wooden drawer, you'll know the sound of, rustling through the drawers and trying to find something. So I thought that was odd, and I was kind of irritated that they were waking me up so early in the morning looking for something. I thought it was my grandma or my dad looking for their clothes to wear for the day.
Right.
So when I opened my eyes all annoyed to tell them to be quiet, I realized I was opening my eyes to my door still shut and the light shining in my room from the daylight. It was 8 o'clock in the morning at that time. And I'm sitting there in complete silence, and there's nobody in my room. And I'm like, okay, this is odd. Then I just heard a loud rustling and things, something woke me up and I'm awake now. So what the hell? And I sat there and I just laid there. I didn't even sit up. I just laid there confused. And I'm thinking, all these thoughts were rushing through my head.
You probably laid there scared to death.
Well, I was trying to figure out what it could be. I thought it was an animal at first. And then the reality...
I could see that.
The reality of not having any pets sunk in very quickly.
She's like, maybe it's an animal. Oh, wait a minute, I don't actually have one.
Yeah. So then the only other possible thought that it could have been was, oh, is there a mouse or a rat or something? And I was like, no way, they can't be, because my room is spotless. Why would there be something like that in here?
Right.
And I lived on the second floor, so how the heck would they get up there? So, that dismissed very quickly. So then I was like, well, if there's nothing I can do, there's nobody in here, so I'm just going to go back to sleep. And so I started closing my eyes again.
Wait,
this time.
This is where it gets interesting, because she told me the story before.
Yeah, and this time I slept, I rolled over to my right side and I faced my dresser. And I started closing my eyes, but this time I made it a point not to close my eyes all the way. I just wanted to close my eyes enough to make it look like I was asleep, but I still slightly was looking through my eyelashes, if that makes any sense.
That's very strategic for a 16-year-old.
And I was like, this is weird to me,
right.
and all of a sudden the noise starts up again. As soon as I sit still, I start hearing the noise again, and I'm trying to figure out where this noise is coming from, and it sounded like it was coming from the dresser. So I made it a point to face my dresser. So I did, and what I saw next, completely just blew me away. I had no idea what the heck I was looking at. It just added up from the night before. Basically what was happening was the noise that I was hearing was the sound of the trophy that was moving the night before, budging to the edge of the dresser, like that, slowly. That was what the noise was. It was the trophy budging towards the edge of the dresser.
And was it actually moving like slowly, nonstop?
Yeah, it was like, no. It was,
or
just
was it
budging,
stop and
like,
start, stop and start?
Yeah,
interesting.
It had a very heavy marble base, so that's not something that it would.
It's hard to move.
Yeah.
It's hard to move.
And
right.
so it was dragging on the wood, and
wow.
So that's what I was hearing, and it was slowly budging like that, and then it would pause.
Like in increments.
Yes.
Like.
And so finally it got right here, and it stopped. At this point, my eyes are wide open. I could not keep my eyes closed for that. I couldn't believe that I was seeing that. As soon as so I'm laying there and my eyes are wide open, I'm like, holy crap, what the heck am I seeing? And as soon as my eyes opened wide, it was like as if something just hit the trophy, knocked it over, because the sound of the thud when it hit the floor, it sounded like it was like basically like picked up and just whack.
Because it's heavy. It was a heavy trophy.
Yeah, and it was just like,
right.
Flew off the counter and landed so hard on the floor, like an extremely loud thud. And at that point, I was like, okay. Something just flew off my dresser. I just saw the trophy fly off the dresser. I can't believe this. So,
and no one was there.
Absolutely no one was there. My door was still closed. And I was by myself.
What time in the morning was
8
this?
8 o'clock in the morning.
Uh-huh.
I'll never forget it. It was the wildest morning I think I've ever had. And I remember sitting there after the trophy fell on the floor. It was dead silence after that. Like, nothing else happened. It was just the complete silence and the shock of what I just saw. And I just remember I slowly sat up on my bed. I was staring at the trophy on the floor. I couldn't believe what I just saw. Somehow I built up the courage to get up. I stood up, I picked up the trophy, I looked at it, it had my name on it, it was my name, I was like, wow, something's trying to tell me something here, it has my name on it, it's targeting me.
Right.
And I was like, put it back where it belonged. I turned around, I grabbed my pillow, I grabbed my blanket, I was in the living room so fast, guys, I was like, peace out, whatever you are, whoever you are, I am out of here, you can have my room.
But you have a lot more courage than me, because I would have been like, that trophy is cursed, I don't want to touch it.
The shocking part of the whole thing was that I didn't realize how significant that morning or day would be until a couple of hours later, towards the middle of the day, where I hadn't seen my brother in a long time. And he popped up out of the woodwork, just out of nowhere. And he was actually there that day to let me know that our mother had just passed away. And that was kind of like an eye-opener for me, because I didn't tell anybody about the experience I had in the morning, but it made sense.
And how soon had she passed? How close to this event had she passed away?
She passed away in the night.
So within a 12-hour time, she had passed away.
I think within moments after her death, she was at my room.
So, yeah, and I'm hoping for Nikki that was very validating, because it lets you know that I think, if I can say this, that she was coming to she was coming to see you. She was coming to let you know that she's still out there.
Yeah.
She used and now as you were telling the story, Nikki had told me the story already, but the second time you told it, I was listening, I realized now why it kept going to the end of the bureau. Because originally I thought it was just about moving the trophy and getting you to notice. Now I realize she was waiting. She was actually waiting for you to be there and to be aware, because it's so much easier to knock it over when it's on the edge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it was her, I mean, I'm not denying that it wasn't, but at the time I was like freaked out.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's always very, very scary when we're dealing with the unseen.
But I know today that it was my mother, because my mother does have a very strong energy, and I mean, I've witnessed things. She continues to visit me, and she's done things like turn radios on that aren't plugged into the wall, and she likes to play me that song from Four Non Blondes, the "What's Up" song.
Oh, does she? Why did she know that you liked it, or you used to sing it with her?
I think that was her favorite song growing
Uh-huh.
up, and I think that it's just such a simple song title and so easy to communicate.
Yeah.
This is a whole separate story, but I'll just add one more short. So, my cousin came over one day so we can paint our nails and have a little, pedicure party. So I go in my room to take my shoes off, and I have a radio that wasn't working anymore. I had it, it wasn't plugged in. It was just under one of my little tables, nightstand tables, and I had it in a box that I was going to donate, to charity, because it still worked, but I didn't, for what I needed it for, it wasn't working. So it wasn't plugged into the wall. It was just in this box of junk that I was ready to give away. All of a sudden, I'm in my room, I'm taking off my shoes, and all of a sudden, the light for the radio comes on, and you hear the white noise, the static.
And it wasn't plugged in.
It was not plugged in.
It wasn't plugged in. Wow.
And all of a sudden, the blue light comes on. You hear the white noise static coming through the radio. When you're trying to find the station, and all of a sudden, that song starts playing. Just the chorus.
Wow.
Just the chorus. The "What's going on," like that part, and it was like, wow. It was just the "Hey, what's going on" part. And then that was it. And then it died out and turned off again.
Wow.
And I'm getting chills as I'm talking about this. And
I bet.
And I was just like, oh, hey, what's up?
See, you had already got into a different place. Once we know what we're dealing with, we tend to accept it. It's only scary. It's like when you're afraid of the dark, what do? You turn on the lights. So as soon as you know what things are, I think it takes away the fear. It's only the unknown.
That, and I think that once we realize that it's a loved one who was close to us in their lifetime, I think it takes that fear away. It's like you become more comfortable knowing that it's them and not something else creepy. And even though there may be other things that we may be able to communicate out there with, we'll always have that. They'll always have our back,
Yeah.
It's like they'll always be there. And so I feel safe, being a medium and being so open, because I know that my mom would never let anything hurt me or come to me. And also, I do things to protect myself as well,
Yeah.
But
I'm looking to see if we have any callers yet. We don't have any callers yet, so this is an excellent opportunity because you brought something else up that I really want to talk about. It wasn't supposed to be part of the show, but you identify yourself as a medium.
Yes.
And that is really interesting because a lot of people can have experiences like that. But I wanted to just tell the viewers, maybe you can take a moment, because mediumship is a whole nother talent in itself. And
Yes.
you really do have to get over your fear of the unknown, of spirits, to be able to be a good medium. Because if you were a therapist, like a psychologist, and you were afraid of people that had schizophrenia, or you were afraid of people that had issues or narcissists, then you wouldn't be a very good one. So if you're a medium and you're past that fear, then you're able to really embrace, and probably I think the whole reason for being a medium is to help people transition.
Yes.
Right? Is that correct? So is that something that you've actually practiced, or is it just that your awareness is heightened?
It's something that I believe that it's something that I would naturally inherited from my mother's side of the family. She was very into tarot and fortune telling. I didn't get to know her very well enough to understand where our roots come from as far as our ancestry and what type of beliefs we were brought up in. But I do feel like I inherited some of that gift from my mother and her side of the family, and also my grandmother, because she was a nurse and her as she aged and grew up. But it's just being across the street from the cemetery definitely opened me up. I would see things all the time, experience things all the time. I feel like wherever I go, I always get to the bottom of something. As far as hauntings go, like I tend to naturally pick. I mean, we were together at the.
Yes, we did an event at this really, really old place in Hollywood. I forget the name of
It's
it.
the Wiltern.
Yes, it's ancient.
Beautiful. It's
Like,
a beautiful
I
place.
think it was like from 1910.
And I think I remember at Madison, because we did a fortune telling event there.
Right.
I remember Madison and I walking in through the door, and the first thing I said was, "This place feels off. Like something like people died here." And we went up to the third floor, which is like this hidden, like VIP room. And for me, the way I practice my readings and my sessions is I tend to like to clear the space and check, and I can communicate with the deceased, so I made sure to check and see if there was anything there that wasn't going to influence the readings that we were going to be giving that night. So when I checked and I asked, I was asking my guides to help me check, I picked up on three spirits there. Had no idea what that was going to mean until the end of the night, but I basically told these guys, hey, that's cool that you're here. I'm not here to kick you out. I'm not here to do anything, regarding you. If you want to cross over, now is your chance, but if you don't, that's fine too. Just please stay out of the way for the readings so that we can do this work. We respect you. You're here. That's fine.
Right.
I didn't really realize, how smart these spirits were, because I remember I was the only one upstairs at the time. Everybody was still setting up, and I had checked this place to clear it and get ready for everybody, to do their readings. I went to the bathroom by myself. I had to turn the light on. It was dark in there, and I went.
I don't think you told me this.
I was
story.
in the restroom. I was washing my hands.
She's very prompt, by the way. She gets to everything early.
I was in the restroom washing my hands, and the same stall that I had just come out of, the door to it closed shut. Like it closed itself shut.
Wow.
And it was a heavy door. Like there was no way that door, like it slammed. And I was like, oh, okay, so there's people here. Okay, and
there's something here.
So when I got back to the table, that's when I made sure, okay, I need to talk to these guys.
Clearing.
Yeah, that's when I communicated with them and let them know, hey, I'm not here to kick you out, but it was strange because as I was sitting at the table doing my thing on checking on the place, I kept getting the name, like the word suicide.
Oh.
And the number 3 kept popping up. And I didn't really know what the number 3 meant, but I felt like it meant there was 3 people who died there. I kept my mouth shut the whole entire night. I didn't want to.
Yeah, because you didn't share it with me.
I didn't share it with anybody.
Right.
I kept it completely to myself, because that's, as a medium, it's easy to I don't want to freak anybody out.
Yeah.
I understand, these things and how it works. So I just, out of respect, I try to keep it to myself unless it's brought up. And it did get brought up, actually. Because we went on with our night and we did some amazing work, all of us who were there. And we remember as soon as we did a grad night, so as soon as all the kids were gone, we were just like,
it was quite a relief. But yeah, there was that was an interesting night, and
the security guard I overheard speaking with you.
Yeah.
About
we don't want to scare anybody, so.
Well, I just think it was so fascinating because. I had picked up on those things earlier, and then as I was breaking down my setup, I overheard him talking about how 3 people had died there.
Yeah.
And how they died.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Well, that's certainly validation for you.
Yeah, that's why I was so fascinated when he brought it up, because I was like, who died and when and how? And
yeah.
I was like,
no, it's really interesting. I think that it's almost... people that don't have that kind of ability, they might just feel like, oh, it's, this place is really old. You might notice that there's a funny smell. You might notice that it feels stuffy, but it's definitely, it really is, it can be a little unnerving when you know more. or when you're getting those messages, or when you're in tune?
Well, most of the time that I've had these experiences, I'm always open and willing. I mean, I've living across the street from a cemetery. Nothing really catches me by surprise anymore. But any time that I've had an experience with the paranormal or deceased, it's never really. Most of the time, I've never gone looking for it. They're naturally attracted to me, and they know that I can communicate, and so they'll just naturally come and show me their story.
I'm just thinking about your hat.
Yeah,
That you're wearing your hat.
And it's just I never looked for it. It's always just happened and caught me off guard. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember last year I went on a trip with my fiance and my family to Yosemite, and we were staying in this old fishing village, and I kept getting visions the whole entire time that there was some kind of something. It was the mining era, and there was the Native Americans also lived on the land, and so
Yeah. No, Yosemite is magical.
yeah, they were coming in to settle in to mine for gold, and the Native Americans didn't like that very much. So there was a lot
Right.
of back and forth with the miners and Native Americans. And so I kept, I'm getting chills as I'm talking about this. So I remember I was getting visions of the midnight raids that would happen. And I had a vision that the cabin I knew it was haunted because we had a woman in there going up and down the stairs a lot. She made her presence known. But the thing that really caught me off guard and surprised me was I kept having visions of a fire, and there was a fire there, and that whole little village that that was now being used as a resort for fishing was actually people's homes at one time for the miners, and they got burned down. The Native Americans came and they burned the place down, as a way of trying to force them out.
Right.
And-
Interesting.
And it was interesting because nobody provided me with this information. I was just picking this up. And I went for a walk by myself with my fiance one day while we were on our stay. And I remember passing by this abandoned part of the village the fire station was there was carriages still there, everything was untouched and still burnt down. Like I was standing on someone's foundation of their home that was burnt down, and there was a carriage that was completely charred and burnt up.
So they never moved this stuff that had been eradicated from
They
the fire?
renovated some of the homes,
Yeah.
but there was still parts of that village that were completely like abandoned and not being used, and like there was still cabins that were completely empty and left alone, and everything was just like you were like revisiting a point in time. And
So you got to see that your vision was right.
Yeah, I saw
because
that. And then
that was proof.
the next morning I met a local who had grown up there, and I had the question was just burning inside of me. Like the experiences every day that I was having was just like mind-blowing. I wasn't expecting to have such a experience on my family vacation.
Or such validation.
Yeah,
that
we
you
thought we
were
were
right.
on a fishing trip and
Yeah.
we were going to have a good time, but it was a lot more than that.
Interesting.
And I think the amazing part was when I met this local and he was telling me about how he grew up there, and he was able to confirm a lot of information with me. I asked him my burning question, and I told him this may sound a little weird and strange and off because I know I'm a tourist and I'm here visiting, and this may sound a little off, but I have to ask you this question. And he said, "What is it? Has this place ever burnt down?" I asked him. "Was this ever burnt down?" And he said, "Yes." "How did you know that?"
But you also had seen the carriage, and you'd seen the...
Yes, but but he answered my question more than what I had asked. He said, "Yes, it was burnt down this year." Forgot what year it was, but he said, "Yes, the Native Americans came and raided the town, and they burned it down, and they were trying to force out a lot of the miners that were in the area." And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I just was blown away, and I felt like these spirits of these Indians were showing me, because I'm very connected to Native American.
Yeah, did you say your mom was part Native American, or I can't remember if it was your mom or
It
your
was,
dad?
yeah, my mother was part Apache.
And she was the one who was into...
The metaphysics.
right,
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, so from what I've heard about the Native American culture is they are very close to spirituality, and they
Yes.
were very tied to the earth and to all those
My
things.
mother was half Italian and half Native American, and I'm Hispanic through my father.
Yes.
So I'm
That's a
definitely
cool
have an
combination.
interesting combo of
Yeah.
ancestry, and
It's
it's
great.
really interesting. But yeah, it was an amazing, mind-blowing experience, and it confirmed to me that wow, I really do have a gift, and I need to start using it. So, as soon as I there's too many of these synchronicities and coincidences that have happened to me. I have like a million stories, that I can't escape it. I'm a medium. Like I had to learn how to deal with
I'm
that.
so glad that you came today because really the whole show was about Day of the Dead and it was about ghost stories, but we've evolved the show now to a place where we're talking about something that's really, you know,
Yeah.
to say that would you be open to helping people if their house was had some activity to move people out of it or
I can help to a certain extent. Sometimes there's things that are beyond, dealing with a deceased person. Sometimes it has a lot to do with the land and the memories that were imprinted on it.
interesting, yeah.
But I mean, if you feel like there's something going on, I can definitely look into it for you. And if it's nothing too extreme where we'll need to call some other people, some other friends of mine in, we can
The
definitely
Ghostbusters come in their white truck.
We can definitely help you for sure.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So I'm still looking. We need some callers because I think that I'm sure that you're not the only one with ghost stories, and I have my one ghost story. But people that live all over this country, especially living in places like the East Coast, would have probably a lot to talk about. I mean, I know that California has some ghost stuff, but I think
California has a lot.
it does. But as you get to parts of the country where the houses and the dwellings and the buildings are like 200 and 300 years old, which California is not as old as that. I mean, there's probably a ton.
Like from the 20s mostly, huh?
Yeah, I think so. Like this country kind of came up, or LA really came up mostly with the golden age of Hollywood. I think that's when so much got built, really.
I mean, I would think that Oklahoma would be one of the most haunted places around, the places where the Civil War took place.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because it took a while. Remember, it took a while for people to make their way out west.
Yes.
Once they came over the Atlantic.
Yes.
By boat, and they only had covered wagons back then.
But I just think it's such an interesting and fun topic to talk about, just because of the simple fact that, with Day of the Dead, coming in so near, next weekend, it's kind of opens you up to these experiences and just kind of embrace the ones that you love, and if you've ever had an experience with a loved one who's passed away and come and visited you, I mean, we'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, we
definitely
want to hear. Give us a heart and call us and tell us about it.
I mean, my grandmother shared a story with me when I was younger. She would tell me her ghost stories because even though she didn't believe in the paranormal, she couldn't escape it, and she would actually physically see them, like as if she saw a person. The day that my grandfather died.
See, that's fascinating to me. She didn't believe in the paranormal, but she believed what she could see.
Yeah, but it was interesting because she said that the day that my grandfather died, like the day, like after the funeral and everything, she was sleeping. They were still living in the same house, where he had died, and she was sleeping on the bed that they both slept on, and she remembers watching him standing. She saw him standing at the edge of the bed, and he was speaking to her. He was like, move over. My aunt was sleeping with her on the bed. She was just a baby at the time, so she had this newborn baby, and she was sleeping on the bed where my grandpa would have been. And she said, my grandpa was talking to her, like, he nudged her and said, hey, move over.
Wait, she like actually felt him touch her?
Yeah, he was like stroking her hair, and she opened her eyes and she saw him there, and he was like, scoot over, let me lay down. And then my grandmother has a temper, so she's
what
like,
what happens if you fight with a ghost?
well, that's what she did.
what happens?
I'm not kidding, that's what she did. She has a temper, right? And her and my grandpa, they clashed a lot.
Yeah.
And so when he said move over, she's like, there's no space for you. And then he's like, move over, I want to lay down next to you. And then my grandmother, she got upset. She's like, don't you see that the kid is right here? Like, what do you, there's no room for you. And he's like, well, just move over. And she's like, is that what you came for? You came to
harass me?
And she's like, you know what? And I'm going to say this because this is exactly how she said. She's like, you know what? Get the fuck out of here. And as soon as she said that, like my grandpa was like, you know, like he put his arms up like this, like, you know, like, okay, you know, backing up, and she said that she saw him go through the wall.
Wow, that's a story. That's a marital fight right there.
Yeah,
that's
even
something
after,
to talk about.
When they say till death do us part, I think they're
you know, but
really mean
but
it.
you know, that's interesting because my understanding is if you are in the space of a ghost, you are the law of the earth. I know, I don't know how else to say it, is that you can say go away and they have to leave because this is our space. When your grandmother said get the you know what out of here,
She claimed her power.
she said this is my dimension, not yours. You need to go. And he did. He went through this. I was going to say he went through the ceiling.
And my grandmother always
the wall.
told me, you know, because there was no controlling my experiences when I was getting older. And she would tell me, she's like, if you ever run into a situation like that where you see a ghost, just cuss at them. They can't hear cuss words.
That's interesting.
But I don't think that's quite true because I've spoken to spirits who cuss.
Oh, have you? Well, hopefully they're not going to be cussing on this show.
No, but yeah, that's
yeah,
my
it's
grandmother.
So okay, I let's bring up one more thing. I don't know how much more time we have, but let me bring up one more thing that I do want the viewers to hear, and it ties into Halloween. We were talking a little bit on the show about getting chills. So, you know, and you were talking about your radio working. And what I wanted to say is that spirits are electromagnetic, just like we all are. That's what our aura is. It's electromagnetic field around us. Science has proven this. Metaphysics, I think, talks about it. And that is how the spirits can affect us. I believe that when we're tuning in and telling stories that gives us chills, it's because part of us is mixing with the electromagnetic field of a spirit, and we're getting chills to let us know we're right, that that's valid.
Absolutely.
Your mother, I'm going to say it was your mother, was able to influence the radio because what are radios? Radios are electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother was able to manipulate her electromagnetic field to cause the radio to come in,
yes,
even though it wasn't plugged in. That's why when you see a haunted house, they always have like the flashing front lights, you know, it's like flickering, because that's what spirits do. They affect our world with electricity.
Yes, definitely. And they use the electricity to manifest. They need energy in order to manifest. If they don't have any energy to feed off of, it's just like, you know, there's not much they can do to help reach out to us and communicate, except, you know, when we're sleeping, they can visit us in the dream world. You know?
Yes, and that has happened.
Yeah.
I've experienced that as well. And you always know it's true when you wake up and you feel it was real. So
yes,
I believe that metaphysically speaking, with quantum physics, we will one day have the formulas and the scientific evidence to be able to actually prove and disprove certain things. I think we just haven't gotten there. I think we're also going to have the equipment, like fast forward, who knows how many years, maybe not that far away, where we can hear the astral. Because dogs have dog whistles that I can't hear, you can't hear, but dogs can hear. And I think if we can just learn to measure the delicateness of those higher vibrations, those higher noises, visually we can see things that aren't there. I think then it's not going to be so scary anymore. It will just be scientific.
I also feel like people already are naturally in tune to those things. Like they'll hear the voices of you know, those spirits, but I feel like it's a lot of, you know, our own thoughts versus what, you know, what is actually happening. You know, it's like getting past that. Is it just me, or
right,
is this really happening? You know,
mm-hmm.
Because I've experienced that several times, and I've also had, you know, premonitions and deja vu and things like that as well. So I feel like people pick up and are naturally in tune, but it's just determining if it's real and if it's really happening, and knowing, you know, what to look out for and what the symptoms would be of being open and you know, through these experiences.
And people can also check out your website, or they could come to you if they have some questions about, you know, am I really feeling this, or is there someone around me that needs to be cleared? I'm glad that you told
One
people
thing
that.
I love to my main specialty that I do for a lot of people, I've done it for a lot of close friends of mine, is I'll sit down and we'll do a mediumship session not with the Ouija board or anything like that. I'll sit down with you as if we're doing a tarot reading,
Yeah.
and I'll connect with the person who's not here anymore. I help people connect to their loved ones and get answers.
We should have introduced you like that. How could we have missed that? You were the Day of the Dead interpreter, but this is so much more important. I mean, not that the other isn't, but this can really help people, and I think that it'd be good for them to know about you.
Yeah, I enjoy helping people in that sense. I helped myself find my lost siblings, with my mother being deceased. I feel like she became closest
like
to
a
me.
guide to you.
Yeah,
Yes.
because, the last thing she told me when she died was to make sure that I was an example and influence on my younger siblings, and to make sure that I would find them all and reunite the family, and I did. And if it wasn't for my mother helping me from the other side, I would have never
Wow.
developed my gifts to the point where I'm at now, and not been afraid of it. I was afraid of it for so long,
Yeah.
until I got into my training, with my Reiki sensei.
Yeah.
I became.
Yeah.
She started to show me, there's not a lot to be afraid of.
So see that, guys? I mean, this is all just stuff that hasn't been proven yet, and don't be afraid of any sort of communication with someone that you really loved, held close to your heart, that just isn't in the body anymore, because they also love you. And I do believe if they could, they would really show themselves more, and they'd like to get the messages across.
And don't be
So.
surprised that if you leave a glass of wine out on the altar on Halloween, you're going to wake up to an empty glass.
Well, that might be me. I might sneak in. I could always use a nice glass of red wine. But anyway, so I think we're wrapping it up. I think the time is up. I'm kind of getting that intuitive feeling that we're probably close to an hour. So I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us. Again, thank you, Nikki, for coming back. I'm so excited that she came back. We hope that she comes back someday again. I know she's got a lot going on. She's a very busy lady, but she said she'll come on in April. So we're gonna pick a spot for Nikki to come back in April. In the meantime, I'll be having lots of other interesting guests on the show. So please stay tuned. Please heart me. Follow Metaphysically Speaking with Mystic Madison and all my wonderful guests, and we hope to see you back.
And if you need any information regarding lost loved ones, or you want to get a session with me, just go ahead and get in contact with Madison, and she'll know exactly how to get you in touch with me.
Okay, thank you. This was Metaphysically Speaking with Mystic Madison.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Nikki Keegan. Thank you.